The time is now 12:33 and a quorum of the board is present. We are recommencing our state board meeting with a presentation on special education. This presentation will be led by Dr. Scott Koenigsknecht, Deputy Superintendent of P20 System and Student Transitions, and Ms. Terry Chapman, Director of Special Education. There will be a PowerPoint presentation. Welcome, Dr. Koenigsknecht. Ms. Chapman.
Great, thank you, Dr. Rice. Can allow me to pull up and share my screen here. And we should be good to go. Does everybody see everything okay? Are we all set?
Yes.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, great. So thank you for allowing us an opportunity to give you an update on all of the things that we've been doing within the Office of Special Education. Again, Terry Chapman is also on the line with me and will certainly help throughout the presentation. Would like to start by thanking the folks within the Office of Special Ed. They have gone way above and beyond in terms of what we've been able to produce over the last 3 weeks in this unprecedented moment. Appreciate their commitment to our kids, our families, the staff, and the communities that we serve. We have provided a number of guidance documents and resources, and we will continue to do that. We will update them as we see fit. And what we're telling people is, as we provide this guidance, is that we're providing the best and the most accurate information we have at this time. So with that said, and Sheila and Dr. Kiesler alluded to some of this information in their prior presentation. But all of what I'm about to share with you can be found at www.michigan.gov/MDE. They showed you where that COVID button was off of the main page. And if you click on that, it takes you to, again, the page they showed you that contains all of our guidance documents and resource documents that I'm going to share with you. The links within this PowerPoint, which I believe you received yesterday, are also hot links as well. So either during the meeting or after the meeting, if you want to go back and look at each one of the links, you can certainly do so. Again, we're constantly adding and updating. So what I'd like to start with are the guidance memos that we issued, and they're listed here. And these are all specific to special education. And the most recent is at the top. And as you go down through the list, it goes to the very first one that we issued about two and a half weeks ago. So we released a guidance document last Friday, number 33, which I would say is probably our most comprehensive guidance document. That was shared with the field on Friday. We have a follow-up Zoom meeting with school administrators and special ed administrators tomorrow at 9 to discuss this, to gather feedback, to provide clarity. In the afternoon, we have a Zoom meeting with Michigan Alliance for Families and also the mediation centers to get their feedback and provide clarity. So know that we are staying very engaged with the field. Moving on, we issued a memo regarding special education student teachers, number 25. We also are including Part C in our updates. And so Memo 20 was an update regarding special education Part C, which is our 0 to 3-year-olds. Memo 19 was a clarification on distance learning for special education students. Memo 3 was our first guidance document regarding Part C. And at the bottom, the first memo that we put out was our Part B guidance at the onset of this pandemic. So again, feel free either now or later to go through the documents if you'd like to see the specifics of them. Another piece that Terry and her staff have been working tirelessly on are special education instructional resources. So it's certainly important for us to provide guidance to the field, but we also feel strongly about providing resources for teachers and in some instances parents. And so here are 2 links to our instructional resource pages that we have posted. The first link is aimed more at teachers. It is our online resource page. The second link is similar in nature. It's a compilation of online resources from our grant-funded initiatives. So here you'll find a number of resources from MyBlissy, you'll find a number of resources from START, a number of resources from our mediation center, and so there are 2 spots that folks can go to get online instructional types of resources. As Dr. Rice alluded, we have a family engagement resource coming soon. We have a very active family engagement group within the department that's works in not only in our division, but in Vanessa and Kyle's division. They are putting together, and we will have a family engagement resource tab very soon. So I'd like to shift gears a little bit and talk specifically to the executive order. Again, this has been discussed today, but would like to spend a little time in terms of how it relates to special education. So within the executive order, Section 6 speaks specifically to special education, and letters A through D and F are directed at local districts. E is directed at MDE. So again, either now or later, if you want to go back and reread Section 6, you can certainly do so. When reading it, again, A through D and F are really more aimed at local districts, E at the department. Letters C and E, and in particular items 5 and 6 within E, speak directly to compensatory education. And we know that this is going to be an issue as we work through this pandemic, probably more so when we come out of this pandemic, perhaps late summer, early fall. Letter E encourages MDE to submit a request to the United States Department of Education, and it lists 6 areas, very specific, and allows the department to add a 7th area. And what I've done is included a link to that document. That correspondence was sent on April 4th, within 48 hours of the executive order, and we received notification that it was received by the federal government on April 6th. And so I want you to be very aware that we certainly complied with the executive order. We are now awaiting the answers to the guidance questions that we answered, or that we asked therein. Part of the executive order also talks about continuity of learning plans. Again, we've talked a little bit about this morning. We know that these are for districts and ISDs. We know the intent of these is to document what they're doing for all of their kids. What are you doing for all of your students? We know that these are due April 28th. The guidance that we released on Friday in that top memo encourages districts and ISDs to go a step further for our students with disabilities. And what we're encouraging them to do is create what we're calling contingency learning plans for students with disabilities. So the continuity plan is the overall plan for all of their kids. And we're encouraging them to take a look then at individual students and create what we're calling contingency learning plans. So a little bit about these contingency learning plans, or the concept. It's consistent with federal guidance. It's supported by the Council or the Council of Association of Special Education Administrators at the national level as well. And the concept behind this is that districts are still obligated to provide FAPE. There is no wiggle room in terms of them providing FAPE under this concept. Under bullet 2, though, what we're saying is we are in unprecedented times. And given that we're in unprecedented times, we're asking districts, how are you going to deliver FAPE now in our new world? And so that's really at the crux of that. Hold that thought. I'm going to provide a few more details regarding that. And then it's important to note that the contingency learning plans will be in effect until the governor's executive order expires regarding the public health emergency. So these contingency learning plans are in no way intended to last a year unless the governor's public health emergency extends that long. But these are short term to help districts provide FAPE to the best of their ability. So a little more specifics with regard to the concept of contingency learning plans. What we are encouraging districts, ISDs, and locals is that their staff should consider accessibility, including what types of accommodations and modifications can be made in this new learning from a distance environment. To the greatest extent possible, staff should keep equity at the center of this work. We know of the tremendous inequities, and so keeping equity at the forefront is important. We are suggesting that these plans should really be designed to document their effort. So how are you trying to best provide FAPE according to a student's IEP? And this is intended to document how they're attempting to do that. We're saying the plan should be very focused, obviously. They should be consistent, they should be detailed, and at the end of the day, they should demonstrate a good faith effort to provide services to students with disabilities. And as these plans are being developed, we've kind of provided a prompting question that's fairly simple, is what is the purpose of the procedure and how can we achieve that purpose in light of these circumstances? And so as a resource room teacher, as a speech therapist, as an occupational therapist, as they're looking at those students on their caseloads, what is the purpose of the procedure, or this instance, the IEP, and how can we achieve this purpose in light of these circumstances? So that's a broad overview of what we have been working on over the past 2 or 3 weeks at the department regarding special education. I do want to assure you that things are going as well as what they can at the Michigan School for the Deaf as well. We know that we are responsible for the education of about 140 students there. And so I did want to make mention that Jan Weckstein and her team have been working, again, tirelessly to make sure that students there are ready to go, and you can see some information here. There are surveys that are out to determine the technology needs for students and staff. The 14th through the 17th, there'll be some virtual staff meetings. We're spending the next 4 or 5 days on professional development and instructional development for staff. And then we will roll out our, in a sense, continuity of learning plan for our students on April 27th. The plans involve all staff, sign language specialists, teachers, aides, interveners, and we will use a variety of technologies to do so. Fortunately, the deaf community is very often very skilled at using technologies, and so we're going to use multiple methods. And again, this plan certainly includes staff professional development, so they feel trained and supported as we move into this to this new world. So with that, that brings me to questions. I will certainly field any, and again, Terry's on the line as well, if you have questions.
Thank you, Dr. Konieczny. Questions for Dr. K or for Ms. Chapman?
I think I kind of.
So I've got one from Ms. Snyder and then Ms. Beck.
So thank you for the presentation, and I know that times are unprecedented, so we don't have, evidence base to draw off of. But I'm wondering, when we think about different platforms that we use for online distance learning, or that secondary educations or other online institutions are using, things like Canvas, Summit, Seesaw, those types of things, do we have any platform that we have tested or used, or anywhere in the country that has been used for special education students that implement kind of that technology that fits them or matches them or reaches them better than, say, the other methods? Do we have anything like that?
So I'll answer, and then we'll certainly kick it to Terry. In Michigan, at this point, we haven't had those conversations. The department, Terry, has been very active on the national level in terms of what other states are doing, so I will certainly ask Terry.
Yeah, we're not aware that at the state level that they have platforms, unless they're a state that provides all the services for the districts, which Michigan does not.
Is there anyone in the country or any particular state well positioned to sort of snag that up and try to move with it?
I'm actually going to be on a call with all the state directors this afternoon at 4 o'clock, so that's a question I'd be happy to put out to them.
Very good. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Any follow-up? Thank you, Ms. Chapman. And we anticipate that we'll be reporting back to the board in successive months, so there'll be an opportunity to share your report from your regular meetings with special ed directors across the country, as we share our meetings from the Council of Chief State School Officers and from other like groups. Thank you very much for sharing that. Ms. Fecto.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Thank you, Scott and Terry, for all your work on this. I appreciate it, as always. So I had a couple of questions that I've been getting from the field. Well, what is the status of the waivers that were requested on the 4th of April? Have you heard anything back from the U.S. Department of Ed?
We have gotten no response back other than they received the correspondence.
Okay, all right.
So, Michelle, the only thing I know is that the education secretary was given 30 days to be able to make her request of Congress regarding any waivers that she felt were going to be necessary. not just for IDEA, but for any other federal requirement. And I'm not sure what her 30-day timeline is, but there was an article in the paper today that should be issued within the next few days. So I don't think it'll be a Michigan response as much as it'll be a national response, and then anything unique to a state she'd correspond to us with.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the secretary can't initiate waivers on her own. Any waiver would take an act of Congress. So again, I think to Terry's point, the idea is that she was to develop a list of potential recommendations, perhaps, but that would still take an act of Congress.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. All right, so what I'm hearing is there's some angst or concern about how the waivers might impact compensatory services, and the waivers specifically that we've requested would, and I'm looking at 5 and 6 on the document. So I'm wondering if there's somehow, if they're going would minimize or, from a parent's point of view, eliminate or reduce compensatory services that might be available otherwise. And so I'm getting those questions, so I'm putting them out to you, and I'm kind of curious to make sure that the regression that's inevitable, both on academically and behaviorally, and the speech therapy and all that kind of stuff, all that regression that is inevitable, how that these waivers won't subtract from what's necessary to get them back up to where they should be. So if you could let me know, like how particularly I guess item 5 and 6 on this request for waiver, if you can help me understand what they mean and how they will not reduce services.
So I'll speak to that again, Terry. You can jump in. So items number 5 and 6 you're referring to are lifted directly out of the executive order, and so that was we were encouraged to ask for clarification and information and guidance on numbers 5 and 6. It would certainly never be our intent to diminish compensatory services for students. If those students are deemed necessary at that individual level, that individual IEP level, then students are certainly do those compensatory services. We know it's going to be a big issue. We know it's going to be costly. I know there's information that's coming this afternoon regarding the CARES Act, which are the federal dollars to date that are going to be flowing to states. And there is flexibility within the CARES Act to use those dollars for compensatory services. So IDEA is spelled out in terms of one of the potential uses. So we know that dollars to provide the compensatory services will be an issue. Another issue that got brought up on a call with a local special education director was staff. We have a severe shortage, as you know, Michelle, of special education staff. And so when we do get back to normal, and I hope that we do, whatever normal is, and conversations are had and compensatory services begin to be delivered, we have to be prepared to address that as well, because we don't have the appropriate staff now to provide, in some instances, what needs to be provided. So those are a couple of issues that have come up. We know it's going to be an issue. We're following it very closely, and when we get guidance back on numbers 5 and 6 and all of the guidance, we will certainly share that.
Michelle,
I had another.
Yeah,
go Terry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the OSEP guidance that they have issued in the past and that they have stood by currently is that districts should be talking about compensatory ed in the fall. That at the point that we assume normal activities, if we can do that, that would be the most appropriate time to really assess what the impact of the lag in services or loss of services really is on the child, and assess them in terms of what is their present level of need at that time. And so that is what our guidance is also reflecting. We're also hoping in these next couple of months that we'll get more guidance from OSEP about comp ed, and additionally, if there are to be funds provided for that purpose, we'd want to align with them to ensure that the districts have access to whatever funds may be made available for that.
Okay, and I fear that the money coming from the feds is going to be woefully insufficient, as it always seems to be, but
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and
on
I also,
second ed.
yeah, comp ed has to be looked at in the context of everybody too. So we also recognize there's a loss to all students. So we can't look at loss the same way we have in the past when all students were making progress and being given the appropriate supports, and an individual child was not able to receive that. So as we look at the impact on all kids, that has to be a different consideration for how we think about comp ed. And what is comp ed and what is really just their present level, and how do we need to understand that to provide appropriate services through FAPE in the new IEP?
Right. No, that's a good point. So I just was reading an Ed Trust Midwest bulletin that just came out, and they were encouraging summer to incentivize teachers to teach in the summer, or people to provide services in the summer. I understand it's hard to understand what the deficiencies are with all these moving parts until the fall. And it was also suggested that, you know, there's a number of folks who are trained in ABA therapy, who have worked with at least, you know, the kids with autism and other similar disabilities that are licensed, and that may be out of work. And to be able to employ them in the summer, I don't think that they get the Medicaid reimbursement, even though they're qualified for Medicaid. I don't know if the Department of Ed or wherever allows that. But it was brought up to me as a suggestion that these might be staff people who could help at least with behavioral issues that may have regressed, and maybe a resource that could be tapped into. So I'm just offering that as consideration. But you've answered my question, so yeah. Yes, Scott, you have something?
No, I was going to say, if you have any other questions, we'll certainly field them. And I appreciate the point on the behavioral therapists. They certainly fill an important role for our kids and our families.
Right. Thank you.
Well, I don't want to lose sight of the point that Chair Chapman made, that this is going to adversely affect many young people, special needs youngsters, and general education children as well. You can't have this sort of disruption in our typical form of public education and not have it not be disruptive in many different ways. We're going to have to assess those gaps, not simply with our special needs children, although absolutely with our special needs children, but in addition with all other children as well. And of course, one imagines, I believe, that this will have the most serious concerns with our younger children who have had less time within our schools and for whom this period of time is a bigger proportion of their total educational experience. So we're going to have to pour into our young people for whom this is a problem, for whom this is a gap, and really work to address this over a period of years, not simply in terms of compensatory services, although absolutely in terms of compensatory services, but also well beyond that as well.
I agree.
Other board members, other reflections, questions, comments, thoughts? Questions for Dr. Kenigschnecht or Ms. Chapman, or additional reflections? Pulsing. You never quite know what you have online. Okay, very good. We appreciate very much the presentation. Thank you, Dr. Kay. Thank you, Ms. Chapman, for your presentation and for your hard work and that of the entire department. You're doing great job. Thank you. Board members, we are going to pivot at this time to our final presentation for the day. This is a presentation on school finances, and this presentation will be led by Mr. Kyle Garant, again, our Deputy Superintendent for Finance and Operations, and Ms. Joetta Parker, our Director of Human Resources. This is a presentation on the Federal Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or CARES Act. and the impact on the state budget of the coronavirus crisis. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. Sharing my screen with folks here. All right. So as Dr. Rice mentioned, we want to share with you a little bit about the Coronavirus Aid and Relief and Economic Security, or CARES Act, information specific to K-12 schools. So the president signed this act on March 27th. The nearly $2 trillion CARES Act provides relief to several broad groups affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, including K-12 education. The largest amount within those funding that'll go directly to schools, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund portion of the CARES Act, provides over $13.2 billion nationally to state education agencies. In a phone conversation with U.S. Secretary Betsy DeVos yesterday, she informed Dr. Rice that Michigan will receive just a little over $389 million as Michigan's share of that overall $13.2 billion pot. The funds will be distributed to schools based on their percentage of Title I Part A. So it's important to note that while they're using the Title I formula to allocate money to school districts, this is not Title I money per se in that sense. These CARES Act dollars are allowed, LEAs are allowed, or school districts are allowed to use those funds for any activity authorized under various federal education acts, including ESSA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the Carl D. Perkins Act, McKinney-Vento, and the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act. Districts may also use the funds for other activities in response to COVID-19, including but not limited to preparedness and response efforts, sanitation, learning at a distance, and professional development. We are awaiting additional guidance from the U.S. Department of Education on how to apply for those dollars, as states must apply for those dollars, as well as to specify the exact uses of those dollars, both at a state and a local level. Sheila had mentioned earlier this morning about waiver flexibility options that play a part with our federal education funding. Last week, we applied for and were granted flexibilities in 3 key areas around the uses of federal dollars. One, the carryover limitations. So the amount of dollars that school districts can carry over from year to year, given the amount of activity being impacted by schools across the country, closing in-person schooling. There were plans and activities for dollars that are no longer able to be carried out. So they're allowing districts to carry over more money over a longer period of time. They're also extending the length of time in which districts have to expend funds over a longer period of time, so districts won't lose out on federal money that was supposed to be spent during the school year. There's also additional flexibilities in Title IV, which is the Student and Academic Enrichment Program. One of the key pieces in those flexibilities is there's an amount of dollars within each state's appropriation that is to go to technology, or that's allowed to go towards technology uses. And there's a cap on those dollars in normal times, and they've removed that cap to help allow districts with better flexibility to meet the needs of learning at a distance in their communities. It's important to note that the CARES Act funding is a one-time appropriation and will not be ongoing funding for states and school districts. We strongly encourage school districts to keep this in mind as they begin to plan how to best use these resources in their district. As we've talked a little bit earlier today and various other presentations, the impact on our need to address this pandemic in terms of suspending education, suspending in-person activities all across our state and nation will undoubtedly have an impact on revenue, both at a state and federal level. I'm going to turn the presentation over to our Director of our Human Resources Offices, Ms. Gerarda Parker, to talk a little bit about the impacts that we know thus far on our state.
Thank you, Kyle. Good afternoon, everyone. I will share the impact on the department. The governor issued Executive Directive number 2024. Sorry, I need to turn my video on. Moratorium on state hiring, creation of new positions, filling vacant positions, transfers and promotions. So given the severity of fiscal challenges due to COVID-19 pandemic, departments and agencies are prohibited from hiring employees, creating new positions, and filling vacant positions. The state budget director may grant exceptions if one or more of the following apply. The creation of a position or the filling of a vacant position is part of COVID-19 response activities necessary to address the emergency. B, the creation of a position or the filling of a vacant position by any method is required by specific legal mandate, federal mandate, or court order. C, the creation of a position or the filling of a vacant position by any method is critical to protecting the health, safety, or welfare of Michigan residents, including residents of a state institution or facility. And D, the creation of a position or filling of a vacant position by any method is necessary to produce budgetary savings, protect existing state revenue, or secure additional state revenue.
So with that, I will turn it back over to Dr. Rice, and Joe and I can answer any questions members may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grant. Ms. Parker, we are open for questions and comments by state board members. After which we will move into public comment. Dr. Pugh.
There was recently, maybe yesterday, and I did not get a chance to read the article, and it was talking about the money that is already being lost for education. And it was 75, I don't know how many zeros were after that. If someone can speak to that, if anyone knows what I'm talking about.
Well, there have been a number of estimates. They're all preliminary about the adverse effect of the coronavirus crisis on state revenue, both the school aid fund and the general fund. Those estimates are preliminary. They're obviously tentative. I've seen a number of articles with different numbers in them. Suffice it to say that there most assuredly will be, has been, and will be an adverse impact on the economy and by extension state finances of this crisis. And we are working currently with the governor's office, the state budget office, in that regard. And other questions or comments from state board members? Questions or comments for Mr. Garant or Ms. Parker? Ms. Fecto.
At the risk of sounding like a dumb question, this Executive Director 2024, this speaks to districts not being able to hire? Is that, or is this just the department? Is it state level? What? I'm sorry I missed that when you spoke.
No, not at all. It is state level guidance, and Ms. Parker, perhaps you could elaborate.
Yes, this is guidance that the governor presented to all state department directors regarding hiring practices moving forward.
Okay, so it does not apply to ISDs or school districts.
Correct.
Or anything like. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fecto. Other questions from board members? Other questions? Ms. Tilley, Dr. Pritchett.
No question for me.
All right.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dr. Pritchett.
Yes, and again, I apologize. You may have said this, but the amount of money coming the $300+ million that will be allocated via Title I Part A. Do we have any idea when that's going to be allocated? And if you said it, I apologize, I missed that.
No worries, Dr. Pritchett. We are still awaiting guidance from USN on how to apply for those dollars. So states must apply to receive those funds, and the Act specifically states that the Secretary of Education has 30 days from the enactment, which the President signed on March 27th, to put out an invite for applications from states. So at the very latest, it would be April 27th. We are hoping that it's sooner than that, but we are still awaiting that guidance from the federal government.
Thank you.
Those dollars are not competitive, though. Board members should realize this. They are formula dollars. They're driven through the Title I formula. So while we do have to apply for them, that is accurate. There isn't a, we'll certainly get them, and every state will get those needed dollars, those badly needed dollars. I do want to reiterate, though, before we go to Ms. Fecto's question, that these dollars are non-recurring dollars. They are non-recurring dollars, and so they ought not to be used for recurring expenditures. Sometimes people in a crisis are tempted to use non-recurring dollars in recurring ways or on a recurring expenditure, number one. Sometimes inexperienced people are led down that path. That would not be smart at all. That would get school districts in bigger challenge, greater difficulties down the line. So we are going to be very, very clear. Word yesterday in our guidance out to the state board, to local school districts, and we'll continue to be very clear. These are one-time dollars. They ought properly to be used for one-time expenditures, for non-recurring expenditures. Ms. Fecto.
Yeah, and bless you, whoever that was. So I'm thinking, and there's been discussion about an expected huge hole in our budget because of the loss of income taxes, sales taxes, everything else. And we're talking about ratcheting things up in the fall and all these compensatory, just all the stuff we have to address, hopefully in the fall when we're in a better place. And we also have the funding formula that, that's been problematic that we have in our state. I know in the past with the recession, there was the TARP money that came through from the federal government to try to help tide us over until we could at least get through the worst of it. I'm not sure if at the, the state superintendent's level or if anybody at NASB or anyone is talking about more long-term, this sort of cliff that I'm expecting that we're going to be coming to pretty quickly. And if there is discussion of funding and how to fill that gap in the future.
So it's a good question. We are actively involved in discussions on this issue, and we'll continue to be actively involved in discussions on this issue. We will have more to report to the board at the next state board meeting, but it's a very, very important question or set of questions that we are right now dealing with the immediate, but you're 100% right. The CARES funding, the CARES Act funding, which is enormously important, which we appreciate quite a bit, is not meant to be enduring funding. It's not meant to be recurring funding. And so the question becomes, how do we address the recurring issue or issues? Those are active conversations within the governor's administration. They are active conversations across the country, and we are engaged in conversations in this area. And again, we'll have more to report in the coming month. Other questions? Other questions? Ms. Ramos Montini, a question? I'm pulsing with all of my people. Okay. Any other board members? Hearing and seeing none. Thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Garant and Ms. Parker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time is now 1:14. Quorum of the board is present. State Board of Education regular meeting of April 14, 2020 is called to order. We move into public participation at this time. Marilyn, are there individuals who wish to address the board during today's meeting?
There are two individuals who wish to address the board. And before we hear from them, I will remind them of the rules for public comment. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to address the board, and I will keep track of time. We will be strictly following the time limit so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. It is the practice of the board not to respond to comments during the public participation portion of the meeting. I do have your contact information if we need to contact you after your comments to follow up. We will maintain an atmosphere of respect for all people. Disrespecting anyone by name or otherwise will be asked to cease. And we do have two callers, and I will welcome the first caller. I believe her name is Lisa Massat. Lisa, are you there? Is this Lisa Massat?
Massett, yes.
Lisa Massett, and can you just let us know where you're from, and then please provide your comments.
Yes, I'm from West Bloomfield in Walled Lake Consolidated Schools. And my main reason for contacting you all is I did listen to the meeting and appreciate all of the information that was provided. But mainly, I'd also like to address the needs of students that do have and have had access to the internet from the beginning of this pandemic situation, which happens to be the vast majority of my district, especially since we have issued over 1,000 Chromebooks to students in need. So I know that the majority of our district is prepared for online learning. And I guess where I'm going with this is we've experienced what I feel is a significant loss of learning thus far for this time period. And while our superintendent has addressed those needs and we are anticipating some new curriculum starting next week, I'm just encouraging the board to not lose sight of those that want to learn and are ready and prepared, and be given as much attention as those that are in the gap areas, which I understand is significant. And I also would additionally just would ask that some focus needs to be specifically given to our honors and advanced placement students. They are preparing for high school and beyond, and I feel like we've also lost a little sight in that. And I just want to suggest that we've got some special needs at that end of the spectrum as well. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Massat. And we have one more caller. His name is Paul Colin. Mr. Colin, are you there?
Yes,
Hi.
I'm here.
Can you please tell us where you're from and then provide your comments?
Yes, Paul Colin. I'm from Bloomfield Hills, Michigan.
Please go ahead and provide your comments. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So I've spoken to a significant amount of other districts and a significant amount of people in our community. One of the major concerns of not just our families, but especially our students, is in terms of grading and what's going to happen. And I've read your guidelines in terms of your strong guidelines for pass-fail option, but I would ask the board, just from an equitable point of view for the state of Michigan, to alleviate a lot of the anxiety to come out with not just a recommendation, but come out with guidelines for everyone to follow of a pass-fail option for the rest of the year. So it's equitable, so colleges are aware, so there's no mystery surrounding whether or not, you know, someone opted for pass-fail and what that perception is for the universities. I think, you know, a lot of our families, again, there's debate of whether or not a pass-fail option versus take the grade when you left, but I think that creates inequitable situations for students who, for instance, may have left with a certain grade and we're looking to catch that up, and again, may have not had that opportunity with online learning to do that. So as opposed to a strong recommendation, I think this is where the MDE and your group needs to come out with a specific guideline that everyone needs to follow in terms of grading. And I would ask that you do a pass-fail option for the remainder of the year for all students across the state of Michigan. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for calling in. I believe that it was our final caller, Mike Flaminio. Could you please verify?
Yes, that's all that's waiting.
Okay, that concludes public comment. Thank you for calling in to share your comments.
Thank you to our two parents in public comment. I think their comments are well taken and helpful to us. We are now, board, at the point of approval of minutes of the regular and committee of the whole meeting of March 10th, 2020. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular and committee of the whole meetings of March 10th, 2020?
So moved.
Do I have a so moved? And do I have a second?
Support.
So moved, and I've got a motion and a support. Marilyn, if you would please take the roll call vote.
I'd be happy to. Fecto?
Here. Yes.
McMillan?
Yes. Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Pugh? Pugh?
Yes.
Ramos Montini? Ramos Montini?
Yes.
Snyder?
Can you hear me?
I do hear you, Ms. Ramos Montini.
Okay,
Thank you. Snyder?
Yes.
Tilly?
Yes.
And Albrecht?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of March 10th, 2020?
So moved.
So moved. Support.
So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Marilyn, please take the roll call vote.
Fecto?
Yes.
McMillan?
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Pugh?
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. Ramos Montini?
Yes.
Snyder?
Yes.
Tilly?
Yes.
And Albrecht?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are now at the point in our agenda for the report of our board president, Dr. Albrecht.
Thank you very much, and really thank you to the department that has made today's meeting possible. This is the first time the State Board of Education, to my knowledge, has ever met remotely, and so far I think it has gone probably better than some of us expected. So thank you so much for that. I just wanted to mention a few things. I'll be very brief today, but I couldn't let this day pass without just recognizing the fact that we're all experiencing a crisis of epic proportions, and a crisis is very difficult. It's overwhelming, and a lot of people, I think, are really struggling with this. But it's also an opportunity, and I hope we don't allow this time to go by without taking advantage of the opportunity that it does present. So we have an opportunity, for example, to focus on what works really well, most important, and probably most importantly right now, what's immediate. And so one of the things that I just wanted to highlight was the fact that within a week of the initial executive order, which essentially closed the school buildings for 3 weeks, the department, with the help of many others, I'm sure, identified ways to make sure that children still were fed in the state. And in some cases, entire families were fed. And there were frontline workers who provided those meals for kids, and that's amazing. There was a website created so people knew where they could go to get food. We also had educators reach out to their students and make sure that they were okay, and that they were continuing to learn, even if it was in unique circumstances. A crisis also, it has a way of shining a spotlight on issues, and in the case of education, I would say inequities. These are things that we always knew were there. They're certainly issues that this board has discussed many, many times. They are issues we've taken, inequities we've taken positions on. We've worked with legislators to try to overcome some of them. We've worked with the budget process in the state to try to overcome some of the inequities. Sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't. But I think that this crisis has really demonstrated the extent of the inequities that we have in our system and across the board. And just today we talked about the digital divide, which we always knew was there, but when you have a situation where your school buildings are closed, that becomes even more important than it ever was before. And 500,000 students potentially not having access to the same content that other students might have access to is a huge problem. And it would be a shame for us not to use this as an opportunity to try to address this divide and hopefully to put a huge dent into what we now know is a very serious problem in the state. Not that we didn't know it before, but we definitely have highlighted it at this point. And then finally, I think it's an opportunity to recognize those that have gone above and beyond. First and foremost, the frontline healthcare workers in the state who are putting literally their lives and the lives of their families at stake to take care of complete strangers in their greatest time of need. So we thank them for that. Also, the educators and the school personnel who are ensuring that our students have continuity of learning and meeting them where they are and not allowing certain challenges to get in the way of those students being able to complete the school year, and in the cases of seniors, to move on to the next level of their life. And then using this as an opportunity to really recognize and celebrate those seniors that did have their school year cut short, but still have done remarkable work and deserve our praise. Also, the MDE staff and the Michigan Teachers of the Year who have put out an enormous amount of information within a very short amount of time. Most of us are working from home at this point, and there might be a perception that somehow is a paid vacation day. And I can tell you from my perspective, and I'm sure the MDE perspective as well, that I think our days are longer now than they probably ever were. And so you can see that in the output that has come from the department and from those that are assisting the department. So thank you very much for that. Finally, to the parents and the citizens who are practicing stay at home to ensure the health and safety of all, we all thank you for that. This is really important. I know everybody is sacrificing a lot People have found themselves in dire situations that they never would have imagined to be in, and my heart certainly goes out to them. But my heart also goes out to the people who have lost friends and family to this horrible virus. And that includes some people on this board who have lost some people very close to them. So thank you everyone for all that you are doing, and keep it up.
Thank you. A brief report of the state superintendent. I want to thank Marilyn Schneider, Mike Flaminio, and Jen making this remote state board meeting a reality. I want to thank MDE staff, our governor's office staff, local school district staff, and ISD staff who have helped establish and adjust daily food distribution sites and operations, childcare operations, social and emotional supports, learning at a distance, and special education services. I want to thank our teachers and other educators who are working in a very, very challenging new environment and in new ways to support children. I want to thank again our Teachers of the Year for their leadership on learning at a distance. We appreciate their voices and those of all of our educators across the state. And to our 1.5 million students, this too shall pass, but work to get the absolute most you can out of your education at this time. Do not slack off. There are moms, dads, grandmas, and grandpas who are on you perhaps more than they were before this pandemic. Appreciate that they are trying to take you to a better place. Appreciate the fact that they are trying to help with your teachers and support staff and administrators continue your education at this important time. And finally, to our board president's exhortation or point, let's not let this dark cloud be without a silver lining. Let's close the digital divide in the state of Michigan. Let's reduce summer slide, and let's use this as an opportunity to reduce the achievement gap between working class and poor children on the one hand and middle class children on the other. It is a miserable time in so many different ways. Nobody would wish a pandemic on anyone or on any people, but it's here, and we should use it to shine a bright spotlight on where we are and by extension where we need to go in the coming weeks and months. Thank you very much. And now if we could pivot to the report of our State Teacher of the Year, Ms. Kara Lougheed. Ms. Lougheed.
Hi, everyone.
She will be joined, I beg your pardon, by Ms. Amanda Clemens, our Region 2 Teacher of the Year. Ladies.
Yes, she will.
Your show.
I'm so glad Amanda's with me. Marilyn, we sent our slides to you, so I wasn't sure if I was supposed to share my screen or if that was going to be done through you guys. So
if you can share your screen, that would be great.
Okay. Let's see if I know how. Because, you know, I don't have students this year, so I haven't been doing this. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yay. Okay, so I am going to start by letting Amanda introduce herself. So let's see if this will work. This way. There we go, Amanda, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I am Amanda Clemens, Region 2 Michigan Teacher of the Year. On my little map up there, you can see Region 2 is the tip of the mitt, as we like to say. And I come from Manistee County, which is highlighted there in red. I got my undergraduate degree from Grand Valley, a special education certification from Ferris. And after my tenure here on the Michigan Teacher Leadership Advisory Council is over, I think I'd like to move forward and go for my national board certification. So that's kind of where I'm headed next on my education. I did want to make sure that I tell all you something important about me is I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college. So that's a picture of my dad and my mama, as I called her, my dad's mom. And my dad's family was from West Virginia. And like many people from the mountains, they came to Michigan to work in the auto industry. So my grandparents lived in West Virginia for my entire life, but my dad stayed up here and met my mom, and that's where I come from. So that's really important to me, to be the beginning of this movement where, you know, college and higher education, regardless of whether it's college, is affordable and open and accessible to everybody. I actually got started teaching in alternative education, which I loved. So Grand Valley put me in alternative placement for my student teaching. And then I sought out an alternative high school position, and I moved to Manistee Area School Manistee Public School System in 2009, and I've been here ever since. I'm a graduate of the Crossroads Writing Project in 2008, and I've been a pretty integral part in the technology aspect of our district. We are a one-to-one device district that we have in our district a lot of connectivity issues. So although our students are one-to-one at school and they can take their devices home, not all of them have internet at home. So that's a challenge that we're working to overcome with learning from a distance. And then I saw when I was looking at Carol, was like, here's the kind of what you say about yourself. And I was like, okay, that everybody kind of presented like their belief system in education. And I sort of struggled with that. My belief system was formed, of course, by my family, who really emphasized the importance of education. And so when I would come home from school as a little kid, my dad likes hot rods, muscle cars. So he would be in the garage working on his car, and I would come in and say hi. And, you know, we had this ritual every day, and he was like, you know, how was school? Good. Okay, why do you have to do good in school? So you can go to college. Why do you have to go to college? So you can get a good job? Because he really believed in that process of being able to move forward and get your education. And so when I think about education and my own belief in what it does for people, I really see it as the great equalizer. Like, education is our ability to provide for everyone the platform from which they can go anywhere they want to go. So I just kind of, I think, summarize some of those main points. And my favorite, the one that I have to think about a lot, especially now in my current situation, is that the best I can do today is what I should do, but tomorrow my best should be better. So thank you all very much for this opportunity, and for the opportunities that being a Michigan Regional Teacher of the Year has brought to me. I'm really thankful for that.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. So we wanted to share a little bit about what we've done. I know you have already heard quite a bit about what we have done, but I just wanted to kind of clarify and give you a few details. So schools closed on Monday, March 16th, and at that point it was just until the 6th, and then Dr. Rice and Sheila contacted us on April 1st, which we of course thought might be an April Fool's joke, but was not. And then the executive order, we know, was issued on the 2nd. So between April 1st to the 5th, we, the 10 of us, the Regional Teachers of the Year, worked over Google Docs and Microsoft Teams. We met every single day, more than once a day, revising in small teams first. And we just want to say what an absolute honor it was to be included and respected to do this work and to be treated as professionals and with expertise. So I'm hoping you could tell what we focused on. With Dr. Rice's guidance, we focused on flexibility and giving grace, connection and relationships, and not just with students, but with each other as well. Collaboration between all staff and stakeholders, acknowledgement that every district's best efforts will look different, parents and caregivers as partners. So you'll notice language in there about recognizing that parents are going to be the teachers now and that they need to be partners with us. And then learning over grades, compassion over mandates and requirements. Those were our central focus areas in writing the entire document. I should say too that we started with a kind of a bare bones draft that Dr. Kiesler put together with a whole bunch of input from a whole bunch of people. So that was really helpful for us to have that foundation to work from. So what we thought we would do, since we don't have all 10 of us here, we asked each of the Regional Teachers of the Year to just send you a little note about how they're doing. And so we asked them to talk about what they're doing and how they're doing. And so on this page, you see Trisha and Doug and Katie and Jeremy, who you have met, all of them by now. Amanda is our last regional teacher of the year. I think you've met everyone by now. Each of them gave an idea about what they've been doing. Trisha is a literacy coach, so she's been doing a lot of support type work. Doug is a specials teacher, so he's been assisting with a lot of things other than just teaching kids. Katie, because she teaches first grade, just is making sure to connect with her students because they just want to see her and they miss her. And then Jeremy really had a lot to say about like this technology that people have been so apprehensive about now is kind of a lifesaver for quite a few of us, which I thought was an interesting perspective. And then how are we doing? Jess kind of summed up how a lot of us have been feeling that you're trying to create and you're trying to do the best you can, but it feels a little overwhelming. It feels a little bit like being in quicksand sometimes. Rachel's really worried about reaching out to all of her family. She's up in the UP. Michelle, again, is also really concerned about connecting. She's trying to talk to kids and laugh with them, and she's worried about their mental well-being more than anything else. And Crystalline, same thing. She's worried about supporting all her students emotionally when she can't be there for them physically. I don't know. I'm not teaching students, so I'm just trying to be supportive of all of my colleagues right now. Amanda, did you want to add anything about what you've been experiencing?
Amanda, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I didn't want you guys to hear my dog in the background while Kara was talking. I talked to some of my students during one of my communications, and I just said that, you know, I had the opportunity to talk to these really important, powerful people at the State Board of Education, and, you know, like, what do you want them to know? So I have two quotes. One is from a student, Olivia, and one of the questions that I asked was like, what role do teachers play in this for you? And she said, teachers are motivators, and without their support and accountability factor, it's super easy to fall out and stay out of the whole learning process. And I really liked that because a lot of times I feel like some of our students, when they have to go to school every day, they sort of take for granted that kind of interaction that teachers have with them and how much, you know, we want for them to be successful and how much that pushes them to be so. So it was nice to hear that. And then I also wanted to share one from a student who, whoops, I have it pulled up here, who wanted to express some of the things that he's really sad about. And here's his. I'm really upset because I missed this track season, but I'm more upset because I'm going to miss college prep summer programs that I signed up for. I'm worried this will affect the rest of my life. I'm glad that we don't really have to make up the school that we've missed, but I don't know how to make up 3 months of learning that I will need to begin next year. My goal this year was to pull up my grades and prepare myself for college, and now I'm worried I won't be ready. And he actually sent me this quote before the learning from a distance plan was solidified. So now that's probably changed a little bit in terms of losing all of that learning. But it really highlighted for me the struggle that our juniors are going through. In Manistee, I teach English for 11th graders. And so I know a lot of my kids are feeling this way. What's going to happen when I have to apply to college? What's going to happen when I take my SATs? What's going to happen to what they see as the rest of my life? So I think that's a big struggle a lot of people are facing right now.
Thanks, Amanda. I just wanted to end by saying we, the 10 of us, have been, we have formed a friendship now that is going to last forever. They're stuck with me. And part of the reason for that is because we have been included in this work, and working with these people over the past few weeks has just meant a lot to us, and we appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Thank you to Kara. Thank you to Amanda. I do want to underscore just how impressive our Teachers of the Year were under very, very tight time constraints. They were outstanding in their writing, in their leadership, in their wisdom. I do need to share one little story, though. We were sharing parts of the document for sort of group editing, if you will, and there's a little bit of a peril to group editing for obvious reasons. You know, have your favorite 10 or 15 or 20 people editing the same passage of a report section. So I throw out the introduction, which I'd written for reflection. And so people read it, and I said, okay, so what do you think? And there's a long pause, and Amanda fills it with, well, it's a little bit wordy. And I said, well, consider the source. And there was obvious laughter. We celebrated virtually the birth of that report last week. We're going to celebrate in person. We hope soon. It really was a great. It was a terrific process. It was a great product as well, and it's a product that's a living document. We're going to embellish it over a period of months as we get reflections from our educators across the state. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your support and leadership. Board members, are there any of you who wish to offer comments at this time? If so, if you could type in a yes, a yep, a yup. Dr. Pugh.
I just wanted to thank them, and the comment that Kara made that she was treated like a professional. You know, I in a way that's disheartening that this is what has to bring us to that. And but just want to thank you for all that you do, and know that the work that all of you all do, we do appreciate it beyond what words can express. So thank you for this work and for all the work that you all do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pugh. Ms. Fecto, Ms. Ramos-Montini.
Yes, yeah, I would like to thank you as well, and I think it's very important to have teacher voice in all our meetings. It's a critically important voice. I just had a couple of thoughts that I wanted to add. One is where there's a lot of data being collected about the gaps that exist, where we need to focus, and I'm wondering if the department is collecting any of that. If this is being, if there's any sort of systematic way to collect that data so that we can have it to reflect on later. That's one question. The other issue I didn't know if we provide any guidance to higher ed or post-secondary institutions that will be looking at the pass and fail transcripts, or these you know, if they're going to be relying more heavily on SAT scores for acceptance. I worry about the disadvantage to students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds who tend to not do as well on these standardized tests, and if it's going to hurt them. If there's any considerations that we would formulate to give to these post-secondary, higher ed, whatever institutions to keep in mind, to make sure that we don't increase the inequity that already exists in our state and our country. So that's it.
So the issue about collecting data, it's early for that, but that most assuredly will be a reflection in the coming months. There's no doubt about that, and we are going to involve our university research partners in that. Our EPIC research partners, they're important in this, and we began that reflection virtually, and we will continue that. They're going to have access to a tremendous amount of data, and we're going to work on amassing that to the best of our ability. I do think obviously the longer this goes, the more adverse impact that it will have, notwithstanding our best efforts to the contrary. All the more reason why what we do in the short run can't be what we do in the midterm, long term. We really have to work on that digital divide in the coming months. To your question about a guidance document to institutions of higher education, it's a good point. We have not reflected upon that. We probably need to. It's actually in part related to the question or the suggestion of one of our two public speakers today. The issue of a pass-fail option, I think his point was he was supportive of a pass-fail and wanted to see it being more strongly pushed at the state level. It sounded like he recognized that we were a local control state and that decision really was a local school district decision, but that he would like stronger encouragement for local school districts making that decision. I think that's a good point. We ought to reflect upon that. We walked up initially anyway as close to that line as we felt we could. We had others that were making a different point, namely that they didn't want to lose the opportunity to get grades at this moment. I think for the moment, that is to say, for this particular last trimester or last semester, I don't think this is the time to be giving formal grades beyond pass or fail. It's a high stress period. You noted Jessica Matthews' comment. Jessica Matthews, the Region 5 Teacher of the Year, Flint Carmen Ainsworth. She said this is enormously stressful to her. Many teachers feel the same way. The same is true for our young people. And I think it would be even more stressful to be having letter grades assigned as if we were in a typical school setting. So I'm extraordinarily supportive of pass-fail, recognizing that we don't control our own destiny at the state level. It is a local decision as we are constituted in the state. Thank you, Ms. Fecto. Ms. Ramos-Montini, and then President Aldrich.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Could you speak up a little bit, please?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
All right. You can hear me now, right?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. Well, let me start with the executive order and what Governor Whitmer was obligated to do for the entire state. And having the slogan, stay home, stay safe, and save lives cannot be more appropriate at this time. And I also salute her for what she did in the executive order to encompass the school year and education as a whole. And I love what the department under Superintendent Rice's leadership have done to come up with so many different resources to complement the education of each and every student in our state. It was beautiful to hear about the food, what we're doing to make sure that the children eat, the child care, the social-emotional support, the learning at a distance, special education, school finance, and assessment and accountability. All of those were put together with such finesse and such meat to the bone that can be used in the school districts in every single part of our state, which is such a diverse geographically and economically and many different ways. And so you have done a tremendous superior work to make sure that the learning continues. Now, today, I feel like I have attended a spiritual educational meeting because it has filled me with the understanding that what we do as members of the state board, what is done by you as a team in the Michigan Department of Education, and what the governor is doing to keep all of our citizens safe is glorifying. And I know that our children are in good hands, and they're learning. We see it as a very important part of their life. And like that student was so concerned about, if this is going to cause and affect the rest of my life, we have to make sure that we develop a peace in their minds and their hearts, that we have their best interests. And so I salute everyone for everything that has been done, and this is a time to be reckoned. Now, another thing that has come through all of this confusion with this virus is the involvement with a new way of communicating. And so I want to thank Mike, I want to thank Marilyn and Jennifer for being so patient with us, especially me. And you know what? Now I know that I don't have the updated equipment that I need. So it's in the process. It's difficult to get the different equipment because everybody's buying it, but I have it in order. So I'm going to be doing this kind of meetings, not even just with the department, but also with the other community committees that I'm involved with. So I thank you all for the patience and the knowledge and the creativity getting all of this set up. It was tremendous work. I know it was. So I thank you 110 times, and everybody have a safe rest of the day, and hopefully we see each other in May, right? In May. So have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos-Montini. President Ulbricht and Ms. Tilley.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what Michelle was saying earlier, and she raised a really valid point about the transition into higher education. And while this board does not have authority over higher ed institutions, because we all know that they are constitutionally autonomous, I can just say from what I'm seeing in my higher ed world is that they were already becoming less reliant on standardized tests. And I have a feeling that this will probably move further into that direction as opposed to the other direction, which would be to rely more heavily on standardized testing for admissions purposes. I think that they were already starting to rethink the value of putting a high stake, if you will, on standardized testing. So my inclination is that this may actually move us in a different direction, which on a personal level, I don't think would be a bad thing. Michael, you are on mute.
Yep.
Rarely, but at that moment. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Tilley.
First, I want to thank you, Dr. Rice, and your team. You guys have been amazing, working around the clock under very stressful conditions, like Cassandra said earlier. Are you getting feedback from me? Because I'm getting a lot of feedback. No? Okay.
No, I don't hear it.
Like Cassandra said earlier, some of us have lost some family members friends, and I'm sure in your department, people are working under those conditions of losing family members, friends, and just really still working hard and being committed to making sure that our kids have what they need. One of my concerns is the stress that the kids are under right now from all of these conditions. Things that are going on in their households, things that are going on in their families, you know, as far as losing loved ones, seeing the stress that their peers are under for different reasons, whether it's losing loved ones, whether it's losing jobs. We don't know when this will all be over, but when we come out of this, we need to think about the PTSD that will be caused and how are we going to help our schools, help our children when it comes to counseling. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tilley. I think you're absolutely right. There's no question that this is going to be that it has been a profoundly jarring time, and that it is going to leave some pretty significant effects, and that we're going to be working through those effects over a period of time, perhaps a significant period of time for some of our young people and for some of the adults that support them. Any other board members that care to share at the moment? Nope. Seeing none, hearing none. Our future meetings are Tuesday, May 12th.
I do.
I beg your pardon.
I couldn't get off the suit. I just wanted to, I wanted to follow up with my with my fellow board members and really thank the department, you, Dr. Rice, for just being the leader that you've been in all of this. I know this was very fast for you as a person with a public health background. I know that it was just a crash course to have to think about all of the things that we normally have to think about in a school day, the safety of children, where are they going to get their next meals, what, you know, preparing teachers, but for you to be able to do that so quickly, and the staff, I mean, is beyond commendable. And we just thank you for your leadership. And then to hear all the plans that have been pulled together so quickly, and not only thinking about now, but thinking about the future and how we can help to shape the future of our children's education is beyond commendable. And just, I would be remiss if I did not chime in on that. So just thank you, kudos. And I just pray that everyone is taking care of themselves as well as their loved ones at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Pugh, on behalf of the department, which is a very, very strong team. And I am daily thankful for that strong team. Future meetings are Tuesday, May 12th, 2020, a regular meeting at 9:30. Wednesday, May 20th, 2020, a State Board of Education work session at 9:30. Tuesday, June 9th, a regular meeting at 9:30. If there are any topics board members would like included in future meeting agendas, please notify Maryland and me. Please note, board, for the record, that it is 2:02.
Aye.
And I beg your pardon. I've got a late benediction apparently on the part of Tom McMillan.
Yeah, no, I put a comment a little while ago. I mean, it was in the press. That was the only avenue, but I know that Nikki and I were not, or at least I was not happy with how initially the distance learning unfolded, the refusal to what I think was Dr. Rice to do what you should have done with the seat time waivers. So there's disappointment, and I thought I ought to at least say that, other than the press, to say it at the board meeting.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Again, if there are any topics board members would like included in future meeting agendas, please notify Marilyn and me. I beg your pardon. We have another comment from Nikki Snyder.
Yeah, that was just sort of a little bit of an echo, but not, not out of being negative, because right now I think it's very important that we be positive, work together, and stay focused on that, that level of thinking and leadership. But it is important. There was something that we had said in those initial phone calls about distance learning, and I think one of the comments you made was it could take up to 3 years. But that loss of learning that we're talking about, that we've talked about throughout the meeting, and distance learning, I think we need to have more of a mindset of it can't take 3 years. We have to make up enough ground that that there isn't as much of a gap. So I would echo what Tom said, but again, staying positive while also thinking and reflecting and trying to be honest about some of the things that we've talked about too in the last 30 days.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Again, if there are any topics board members would like included in future meeting agendas, please notify Marilyn and me. And we stand adjourned at 2:04. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.